Hello, and thank you so much for being here. The goal of this presentation today is to talk about how to become a successful student athlete and to prepare for the next level. It could be a high school athlete or being a college athlete, but to be a basketball player at the next level, there's certain skills we need both as an athlete and as a student. Everything we're going to talk about today is research-based and best practice for everybody, but essential if learning or organization is challenging for you. Also, keep in mind the same mindsets that work to help us excel on the court work in the classroom, making sure we can balance everything we need to be a successful student athlete. So I'm going to give a quick background on who I am and what is our background in helping student athletes and being student athletes ourselves. Whether you are going for a basketball scholarship or not, the same principles apply if you do want to go to college. So we'll discuss all that and talk about how we can prepare for success. Next, we're going to talk about what coaches at the next level are looking for. Again, the same things that help you excel on the court, help you excel in the classroom, and these are the skills that coaches are looking for. Then we're going to talk about the academic mentality we need to improve the classroom, which will transfer over to the court. And then we're going to talk about how to do school. So here's a quick background on who I am. I was raised in Boulder County, Colorado. And I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 5 years old. I always tell people I had the best type of ADHD. I had the type of ADHD where I was flipping tables, jumping on chairs in kindergarten. There were teams of people coming in to watch me and trying to figure out what was going on with this child. The reason I described it as the best type of ADHD is I got so much help early on in life that helped me go through my path as a student athlete. There's many of us who learning may be challenging at times, but we don't quite identify it until later on. These are the types of student athletes that we see a lot that we want to help as much as possible. The ones that know that something may be going on, and if we just tighten a few things up, we know we can help them thrive. So I went through middle school and high school, struggling academically, but doing really well in sports. I went out to Ohio on a football scholarship, and my freshman year, while playing college football, I couldn't navigate the academic, the athletic, the social. I couldn't balance everything I needed to thrive. I bombed out of school, and then I had to start my path in working myself back. I was able to stay in Ohio, transfer to a different school, and be a college football player. After I finished my football career in Ohio, I went to Arizona State for my master's in education, and I came back to University of Colorado to get another graduate degree in psychology. I wanted to help student athletes, give them the skills early on so they could be successful in school, in sports, and whatever they wanted to do. Then we founded Untapped Learning. Untapped Learning is now at the sports stable. We're working with many student athletes from many different sports, helping them do well in the classroom, on the court, really decreasing anxiety and helping them balance everything. We also work with high schools, colleges, athletic departments, helping as many students as we can learn how to balance everything at the next level. What we know is the higher grades you have, the more likely you're going to be recruited. Doesn't matter if it's Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, junior college. The higher the grades, the more likely you're going to be awarded a scholarship. There's several reasons for that. Division 1, we have 13 full ride basketball scholarships. But when you get to Division 2 and below, there's a pot of funds. There's 10 full ride scholarships. What coaches will do is they'll recruit athletes with higher grades. That way they don't need to give full athletic scholarships. They can give partial athletic scholarships and partial academic scholarships. If they recruit students with higher grades, they can have deeper rosters and they don't need to use full athletic scholarships on one basketball player. 75% of student athletes who are recruited actually have a 3.0 GPA or higher. So they have B average grades or higher. These stats come from the NCAA, and we just see over and over the higher grades you have, the more likely you are to be awarded a scholarship. Here's a quote from a college president saying they won't even recruit someone below a 3.0 unless they are just very special because they aren't able to dip into multiple funds for both athletic academic financial aid. So here's why we see college coaches recruit higher GPAs. First of all, and I spoke to it, you can build a roster with deeper talent. Next, for good or for bad, they view less risk with the athlete. It could be academic risk, meaning academic risk for qualifying and getting into the college. Coaches have to dedicate a lot of time into every single athlete they recruit. If they're going to dedicate their time to you, they want to make sure you're getting into college. Also, we see risk talked about with, are they going to be able to stay in school? There's many people like me who I was recruited, but I wasn't able to stay in school. And so all that time recruiting me kind of went to waste. They want to make sure they don't make that mistake over and over again. Some coaches correlate grade point average to your commitment and your coachability. They just see it when they look at you on paper as someone who's committed to being a basketball player at the college level, and then you are going to be coachable. The final reason that they recruit student athletes with high grade point averages is because often coaches and athletic directors will get a financial bonus if their student athletes are proceeding the way that they should to graduation. So here are the skills that not only college coaches are looking for, but also high school coaches. We're going to talk about what the skills they're looking for and how we can work to develop those now. The first skill that they're looking for is time management. When you are a student athlete, there is a lot on your plate. School, practice, the weight room, there's family, there's friends. It's really hard to manage your time. They're looking for student athletes that can manage their time. They want to make sure that their athletes know how to plan and how to prioritize what is important. They're looking for people who can be on time all the time. A large part of time management is understanding your organization system. Do you have a place where you list out all your practices, all your weight room sessions, all of your film sessions, all your assignments, what office hours to go to, and etc.? Do you have an organization system that feels good to you and one that you update frequently? All this ties into time management. Next, they're looking for student athletes who are self-aware, student athletes who know how they learn. Again, your studying time is limited. There's not as much time as the typical student gets to study for tests and turn in assignments. So you have to know how you learn, and you have to have awareness around this. A huge perk to being a college basketball player is that you do have access to resources that other people don't. A lot of athletic departments will have dedicated tutors. However, one of the biggest complaints amongst college coaches is that their student athletes don't know how to access these resources. They're looking for basketball players who know when and how to ask for help, and then they want people who know how to use their resources. Finally, they're looking for people who step foot on campus with a certain level of maturity. Obviously, we're not fully grown up yet, so doesn't have to be completely mature, but a certain level of maturity, understanding why you are there and what your purpose is there. And a huge piece of that maturity is emotional control. Doesn't matter if it's on the court, off the court, in the classroom. So here are the skills coaches are looking for. Let's talk about how to develop these skills. The first mindset needed to be successful is the Navy SEAL saying discipline equals freedom. I know if we're working with a college basketball player, if they go to office hours with the professor, that 30 minutes with the professor saves you an hour and a half to 2 hours on the back end. If you're disciplined enough to stretch before bed, you have less likelihood of getting hurt. If you're disciplined enough to put your phone away while you're doing homework, you have the freedom of getting through it faster. Whatever your challenge is, find a way to work in a routine, a discipline, and then you will see tons of freedom. Our focus at Untapped Learning is what we call executive function skills, the skills you need to reach your goal. It's breaking down that goal into manageable daily steps and staying on task to getting there. What needs to be done every single day and how we reverse engineer that to be successful. So here's what your executive function requires: time management, organization, physical organization, electronic organization, and how you organize your time, attention, impulse control, task initiation, or getting started. A quick note on task initiation: post-pandemic, getting started academically is one of the most challenging things for most of our student athletes. If we can build in a routine around getting started, we see our kids really thrive. Emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, problem solving, working memory, and then metacognition, which is just a fancy word for thinking about how we think. This comes back to self-assessment. Knowing how we learn, knowing how we study, and knowing how we take tests and doing it at a high level, we see our student athletes be successful. If you have some kind of challenge like an ADHD, a dyslexia, high levels of anxiety, or something like that, many parents want to go and get accommodations. Research shows us the most important thing we can do is start at the bottom: sleep, exercise, structure, and routines. Those are the most important things that'll give us the most bang for our buck. For example, 15 minutes of exercise per day is performing better than Adderall right now in clinical studies for attention, learning, memory, retention. Sleep, structure, exercise, and routines, these are the most important things we can help our kids with now so they can start to develop these habits for the next level. Let's talk about routines. First of all, the brain is electricity. Electricity flows down the path of least resistance, and that's why routines work so well. Once we implement them, they go on autopilot. Research shows us routines have significant reduction in stress and anxiety. If I'm disciplined enough to have an academic routine, or I study in the same time in the same place every single day, I don't have the stress of when and where am I going to get started. I don't have the anxiety hanging over my head of When am I going to do this assignment? Significant increases in focus and organization. Again, life happens, but as much as possible, if we study in the same time in the same location and we use that location for homework only, we see our attention get really good in that location, even if you have something like ADHD. And then long term, trying to build confidence, discipline. So here's an example of a routine that I needed to implement as a college athlete. So first of all, I have a bowl when I walk in my house. My wallet, keys, phone land there. I call it landing pad. I have to lay out my clothes. Everything is laid out the night before or packed, and then backpack is packed next to your door. This is a great way where we can clear our head from anxiety, because when I wake up in the morning, I know where everything is and everything is laid out and ready to go. This one routine took a ton of anxiety out of my life. We implement it, and we see anxiety go down and confidence go up. And this really helps our students for when they are at college and they do get the athletic scholarship. So again, same time, same place whenever possible. If they're doing it right when they get home from practice or get home from school, we have snack, we have dinner, we have a quick reset personal time, 15 to 20 minutes. Right when they start their academic routine, we have them get organized. They're organizing their backpack, they're organizing their binders, or they're organizing their electronic organization. That could be Google Drive, that could be email, whatever is relevant to them. Then we check our teachers' websites and we incorporate that in our plan. We're checking to make sure nothing new was assigned. We check our grades, not to get obsessed with grades, but we want to make sure we know where we stand. When I was failing out of college and losing my scholarship, I had no idea where I stood in each class, and that became a huge issue, and we see that students in college. So with this routine, if we do it every single school night, we always know where our materials are, we're supposed to work on, and we know where we stand in the class. This is another example of an academic or school routine that our student athletes, when they implement, they get very successful. We can also teach our students how to build in routines around athletics. If we're trying to increase our free throw percentage, having routines around shooting free throws every single day. What time of day? Where do we do it? How do we know when to start? How do we know when to stop? Etc. Really, the key for success when you are very busy is having clear and consistent routines. The next piece is planning. Teaching our student athletes and our basketball players how to plan, we see huge results on that, and that's what the research shows us as well. We're the type of people where if we have a test on Friday and we have a basketball game on Thursday, we'll come home from our basketball game, we'll freak out because we have so much to do to study for this test, and we had no idea, we didn't plan ahead for it. This is a skill that we need to implement now. It also prevents procrastination because we know exactly what we're supposed to be working on every single day. And what we're really after is reducing stress. When we reduce stress around academics, we also see much less stress on the court, and we just play and be free and have a clear head. So here's an example of a planning routine that we've seen work with middle school and high school basketball players. The first thing we do, we check the game and practice schedule for the week, and we build it into the plan. We check appointments, events, anything else the family has to do. Then we check the big assignments, what quizzes, projects, and tests are coming up that week. If there's a test on Friday, we also want to backwards plan that. Do we need to study 10 minutes per night? Do we need to go to a teacher office hours on Wednesday morning, or however that looks? Next piece is we plan in the to-dos. What assignments, what chores, what else do we have for the week? We want to plan that in. We want to build in personal time, and this is very important, because we don't want our life completely sucked up with just sports and school. We want to make sure that we build in time for friends, social time, and then we want really clear expectations with our middle school and high school students. We need very clear expectations. What positive small thing happens if we get through the daily plan? And then what accountability happens if we don't? If we don't study for our test on Tuesday night, if we're supposed to do it, well, then we have to go to office hours the next day. You can see just systematically how we do this with a lot of our high-level student athletes. This is a senior in high school. Most plans will not be this busy, but build it in step by step, and we want to make sure that we have a clear plan. If your child struggles with anxiety, well, want to plan and get all of this out. The brain is for having ideas and not holding ideas. So we want to get it all out, and then we can either cut up this to-do list and give just one day at a time. We can send out automatic emails. The goal is just to have one day at a time if we struggle with anxiety. The last thing that has been really helpful for a lot of student athletes is what we call time blocking. This decreases procrastination because when we see our time on a calendar, we often see that there's really no time to procrastinate on an assignment or on a test because there's just not a whole lot of time coming later. If you have any questions about routines or planning, whether it's picking the best planning structure or finding the one routine that we need to be successful, please don't hesitate to email me. The last portion of this is teaching our students how to do school. If you are a busy basketball player, we have to get very efficient at doing school. I didn't understand how to do school, which caused a lot of challenges. Once someone actually broke it down for me and explained it to me, I got good at the game of school. Here's a few things to keep in mind. The first one is self-assessment. If a test or a project goes really well, a lot of us don't understand why it went well, so we can't recreate it again in the future. We don't understand how we learn. Let's say your child gets an A on a big assignment. Instead of just praising them, we want to make sure we praise them and we ask a lot of questions so we can recreate it again later. How many days in advance did you start studying? Did you study in a group or did you study by yourself? When you studied, was it in a quiet environment like a library or was there a buzz in the background? By asking a lot of these questions over and over, we'll start to see patterns over time. And then when our student athlete gets to college, we see a high level of success because they know how they learn, they know how they study, and they know how they retain information. We get the question a lot about how to study. Many adults, they feel like their child doesn't know how to study and nobody's teaching them. The first thing is we want short, frequent study sessions. This is how we get information from short-term memory to long-term memory. This works way better than cramming for an hour the night before the test. Going back to that discipline equals freedom mindset, you spend less time studying versus cramming, and we learn the information. So short, frequent study sessions. With the information you learn through that self-assessment piece, if you are in a subject that is challenging for you, or you're in a very high-level subject, like you're a senior in high school and you're studying pre-calculus or something of that nature, it's really hard to study for that test because you have so much information to learn and we don't know when our study session is done. This also produces a lot of anxiety versus not knowing if you studied enough or just not studying at all. One tactic we use a lot with basketball players is the note card or the one pager. If we can take all the information from 3 chapters of pre-calc and get it onto one sheet of paper, well, we learned it. This is an example of a one pager for an AP psychology test in high school. It doesn't matter if the teacher lets you use a note card or a one pager on the test. If you've done all the work of taking all this information, getting it, synthesizing it down, more often than not have learned it. And the last one is if the student can teach the information to you or to someone else. Many of us have been in a situation where we think we understand something, and then when we're supposed to teach it back, we just don't know it. And then using your strengths, again, and going back to that self-assessment piece. Going back to what coaches are looking for, they're looking for students who can understand when they need help and are able to communicate that. A lot of times our student athletes don't know how to talk to a teacher or a coach. They don't even know what they're asking for. They just know that they need help. What we want to do is we want to role play. We want to teach them how to walk up to their teacher or their coach with their shoulders back, their head high, looking them in the eye, and clearly communicating what they need. What we're really after here is the big picture. All these skills we're talking about, especially this one, translates into their adult life. A second piece of this is teaching them how to advocate. We see this over and over at the end of high school and college where our student athletes just don't know how to email. And now there's so many online classes. There's just a lot of email communications with the professor. Not only teaching them how to do it, but giving a script they can keep in their drafts of their inbox. That way they can just copy and paste it anytime that they need to. So they are clearly communicating what they need. And then the final piece of all this, every athlete understands that if you have a challenging practice or if you have a challenging session in the weight room, you need to rest your muscles after that or they won't grow. You can't just keep lifting weights. You'll wear down over time. Work as hard as you can and you rest and then you grow. The brain mirrors this. When we are studying or working on school, we want to be at a 7 or an 8 for focus. We want to study as hard as we can. But then the most important thing most of us never do is we come back down to a 2 or a 3. Not playing on our phone, not focusing on anything else, just resting, going on a walk, doing whatever that is for a few minutes. When we do this, we learn much quicker and we grow. It helps us avoid burnout. It helps us stay engaged. So we want to focus as hard as we can, rest our brain for a few minutes, and then that's the maximum growth. Untapped Learning is now working with the Rough Riders, Carl Prep. If you feel like your student athlete needs help on what we talked about or other academic things to help them get that scholarship or just to help them be a successful student, we have an office now in the stable to work with kids before practice, after practice, or just whenever they need it. So Our job is to develop the whole athlete, make sure that anxiety stays low, that they stay on track in school, and that we set them up for success and help them reach their goals. We work with our students for at least an hour every single week, helping them with their school, holding them accountable. We have extra study sessions. We have whatever they need to be successful. We'll put these in the notes as well. But if you'd like to contact us, here is the QR code, and I'll give our website as well. Here's our newsletter. We just send out tips on how to be a successful student athlete. And then here is my email, and here is our website. Thank you so much for your time. Again, my name is Brandon Slade, and don't hesitate to reach out to me or anybody else at Untapped if you have any questions. Thank you again.